This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. The steps that Donald Trump and MAGA will take to suppress the vote, to disenfranchise people in battleground states especially, in order to try to steal the election, knows no boundaries. What am I talking about now? The Republican National Committee, on behalf of Donald Trump, just got an order from the United States Supreme Court. Yes, their summer vacation seems to be over. A 5-4 decision which has a major impact on Arizona registered voters and those to be registered to vote by the October 7th deadline in Arizona. We got a November 5th election, and we got Donald Trump and MAGA who are busy. They say one thing and they do another. In public, they say, we're for the vote, count every vote. But in private, in secret, they're trying to disenfranchise you and me and our ability to vote, especially in a state like Arizona, where Joe Biden only won by 10,000 votes. Yes, it was a win, and where Mark Kelly, the senator, is only up by 1.5 points. Arizona matters, and Arizona matters as one of the electoral map strategies for Kamala Harris. So let's talk about Arizona. This new United States Supreme Court decision has to do with how you prove your citizenship before you get to vote. Let me tell you how I did it 40 years ago. I signed an oath. I took an oath that said I am a citizen. And I understood that if I was not a citizen and I was voting, I was committing voter fraud and could be prosecuted. That's it. I didn't have to show my passport or my birth certificate. I didn't have to have anybody run my DMV in a database or anything like that. That we counted on. It's not the honor system. It's the criminal justice system. But that wasn't good enough for the Arizona Republican legislature after they lost in 2020. They decided to increase the hurdles, raise the bar for people to have to register to vote because they want to make it as hard as possible, as many steps as possible, right? It's like that coupon you get that says, well, you can use the coupon for the discount, but you got to cut off the box top in the back and the UPC code. You got to mail it in this kind of envelope. No, the envelope was too big. Sorry, you didn't get the coupon. It's like that, but we're talking about voting, the most fundamental right in our constitutional republic. And so Arizona's legislature said, well, we can't win at the ballot box. Let's beat them with new laws about how you vote and how you register. And so what they said was the federal form, which one would argue preempts, or when there's a conflict between the federal form or the National Voting Rights Act, the NVRA, and any of your kind of state weirdo policies and procedures, the federal law should govern, has since it was passed in 1993. That says you just have to swear an oath. You don't have to bring your passport or your birth certificate with you. This way, if you're on the street and somebody registers you to vote, which is okay, you don't have to say, oh, well, let me go to my car and get my passport and my birth certificate. Like we're carrying those around. Another hurdle, barrier to entry into the electorate. Disenfranchisement, if you will. The federal form says just swear an oath. But that wasn't good enough for Arizona. They said, no, birth certificate and also passport or maybe a database, and make the clerk's office like they have an unlimited budget and unlimited resources and manpower. Let them do it. Yeah, right. They won't do it, and it won't get done by the time of the election. So we've got sort of a split decision in this 5-4 decision. Those that have already registered to vote as of the date of this Supreme Court decision, which is this week, they seem to be safe. Whether they took an oath or use their passport or birth certificate or a database, they're in. They get to vote. So that's tens of thousands of people that will have probably registered to vote for the first time and will be voting. But then there's this whole other group that's still registering to vote with massive voting registration drives, primarily by the Democrats, until the October 7th Arizona deadline, that now are subject to this new rule. Got to get their birth certificate, got to get their passport. Now look, Democrats are in favor of election integrity. Democrats are in favor of not having outcome determinative voter fraud. There's always fraud in an election. Somebody's always voting their dead mother-in-law's ballot. Somebody's always voting in the wrong precinct on purpose or intentionally. Somebody's voting more than one time, but it is 0.00%, and it does not impact the outcome of the election. That's how good we are. That's how good our criminal courts are and our criminal prosecutors are going after these people. So this is not about that. This is not about voter integrity. There were dead people voting in Arizona. How do I know that? Because Donald Trump paid for not one but two audits. And so did the Republican legislature They used cyber ninjas out of Florida, who had never done an audit before, if you can remember that. And even cyber ninjas paid for by Donald Trump and other forensic auditors paid for by Donald Trump said there's no fraud. There was no outcome determinative fraud in Arizona. So why are we passing these laws? For voter suppression, for disenfranchisement. And they almost got away with it. The 5-4 decision was, as I've said before, the unholy trinity of Gorsuch, yes, Thomas, and Alito. Gorsuch has now moved far alt-right and votes reliably with Alito and Thomas. Then they use that gravitational pull to pull over Kavanaugh and Chief Justice Roberts on things that matter to you and me, like voting, women's rights, church and state separation, the fundamentals. And so that is the new gravitational center of the court. Now you've got Amy Coney Barrett, who has moved as an intellectual centrist. She votes in the center, sometimes with Kavanaugh, and oftentimes with the Democratic wing of the Supreme Court, Brown, Kagan, Sotomayor. But this 5-4 unsigned decision, we only know one thing. Alito, Thomas, and Gorsuch would have allowed the entirety of the Arizona law to apply right now and disenfranchise 40,000 people. So if Gorsuch, Alito, and Thomas had their way, 40,000 voters who have already been registered would have been disenfranchised. My family's growing with the addition of our baby daughter this summer, and it's more important than ever to make sure they're protected. That's where Policy Genius comes in, the leading online insurance marketplace that helps you find the right life insurance policy at the best price. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. What I love about Policy Genius is their unbiased approach. They don't have an incentive to recommend one insurer over another, so you can trust their advice. Their technology makes it easy to compare quotes from top insurers, and their expert licensed support team is always there to help. Be ready for the future with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/legalaf or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/legalaf. What it means now, based on this ruling and the way that they blocked and allowed certain aspects of the law in Arizona and ignored at least 10 years of Supreme Court precedent. Here we go again, another ignoring Supreme Court precedent. In 2013, Arizona was the subject of another Supreme Court case, this time written by the late Justice Scalia. And Scalia then was joined by a brand new Kagan, a brand new Sotomayor, and they wrote a majority opinion that said the National Voting Rights Act, the NVRA, superseded any of these other hokey ways that communities try to screw voters and make it too hard for them to vote. Now, who was in dissent back in 2013 in that case, which was Arizona versus the Intertribal Council of Arizona? Of course, Thomas and Alito. They've just been biding their time, waiting for them to get the numbers. And they finally got it with Donald Trump adding on Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. So the 5-4 is Alito, Thomas, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Roberts. We know it. And the 4 in dissent are the 4 in dissent. Amy Coney Barrett, Sotomayor, Kagan, and Ketanji Brown Jackson. If you don't like 5-4s in that direction, vote in November. Vote in November and make sure Kamala Harris and Tim Walz win, because that will help rebalance the court, calibrate the court properly, because they'll get at least one, if not two, Supreme Court positions if history serves as any guide. There's just openings that happen, natural and otherwise, and retirement. So, or impeachment. I'm looking at you, Clarence Thomas. So she might have 2 openings, could be more. And that could rebalance the entire court. That's what makes it so important. So the headline here is, while there is a large group of Arizona voters who don't have to show their birth certificate and don't have to show their passport, all the people now who are being registered to vote from now until October 7th in Arizona, mainly a lot of Democrats, are going to have to walk around with their passport and their birth certificate, or the clerk's going to have to find them in some database to confirm their citizenship. We are for citizenship voting. We're just not for hardened methods, difficult methods to affirm that. An oath was good enough for me. An oath is good enough for elected officials. policed by the criminal justice system, and it should be good enough for Arizona. So that's our new ruling. What does that mean? It should fire up the voters for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and fire up the Democratic Party to crush Donald Trump in Arizona. This should activate people if they weren't already active. We've got to get that Senate seat that's currently occupied by Mark Kelly. We have to get him reelected. It's important. All the federal judges and the confirmation of federal judges and the Supreme Court go through the Senate. We need the Senate. Mark Kelly, we can't take him for granted. People have to get up off the couch. I'm looking at you, J.D. Vance. And we have to go vote, right? We've got to leave it on the field, as Coach Walz just said. And we got to do something, as Michelle Obama just said. And this is what we got to do. Take these losses and use it to activate people and get first-time voters to the polls. We know from the statistics, the demographics, that Kamala Harris does amazing with first-time voters. She's up 14 to 20 points with women now, with Hispanics now, with Black voters now, with first-time voters, with people under 45, with people with college educations. The non-white voter is cutting sharply to Kamala Harris, and that includes Arizona, which has a lot of Black and brown voters and Hispanic voters. And this will only, I hope, redouble the efforts of the Democrats and the groups supporting Democrats in voter registration to get people voted, and go get the birth certificates now, and go get the passports, and get these people registered. We don't want to win by 10,000. We want to win by 100,000 in Arizona. This has to be a crushing defeat of Donald Trump and MAGA. That's the only way we'll restore the two-party system in this country. Because right now we're one party short of a two-party system. We got one party and a cult. And that cult is headed by a cult leader named Donald Trump. And that head has to be lopped off. And once that happens in a crushing, resounding defeat, then it's sort of like a wildfire on a mountaintop. It'll burn off and burn down all of those old trees. And from there will be little flowers, little edelweiss coming through the burnt out carcass of the landscape. That's what's got to happen to the Republican Party, right? The Democrats got to burn it down, and so do the Republicans. And they got to start from anew. We need a healthy two-party system in this country. We only got two parties, right? And we're, like I said, we're one party short. So this will help. Crushing defeats at all the battleground states, not sliver victories, not like, whoosh, that was close. I want a blowout. We want a blowout for democracy, for the constitutional republic that we are hidebound and duty-bound to preserve and protect. Here on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF, that's what we're doing every day, every hour, right here. Join me on Legal AF. See it? Every Wednesday and Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, where we curate the top 3 or 4 stories at the intersection of law and politics, just like this one, and we bring it to you the only way we know how, uncensored, unplugged, unfiltered, sometimes unhinged, in defense of democracy. Wednesdays, I do it with Karen Friedman, Nick Nifolo. Saturdays with Ben Marcellus, and then I do hot takes like this about every hour. You don't like to watch your podcast being made and live chat with the hosts? That's okay. Then use the audio versions. Just plug in Legal AF to all of your podcast platforms, and you'll find us. We'll pop right up. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know, and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.